Hi guys, Chantal Williamson here with Integrity Education. There was a question on the Badass Body Workers Facebook page the other day about working the pec, but avoiding the breast tissue. And so I wanted to show you how I work the anterior shoulder and the upper rib and the anterior rib cage. So let's get into that. So I've already got some oil on my person here. And usually I just kind of sneak over into the pec like that. And then I'm going to show you how I use a little bamboo, and then I'll go into how I use my hands. So I just start off with some bamboo, and that's just warming up the tissue, sneaking up into the pec here. I've got a folded towel that I'm going to use for a bolster. Just bringing her arm up and over the head. And if the arm is really long, then sometimes I like to take the face cradle and put that out, and then the arm can sit on the face cradle. Lots of lotion on the delicate tissue of the upper arm here. And then I'm still using this heated bamboo just to warm the area up. And I like to sneak the end here right under onto that lateral side of the on that lateral side of the scapula, so that I'm getting the subscap and the teres area. Just tracing almost the anterior edge of that lateral side of the scapula with the end of my bamboo. Warming it up for some maybe a little bit more deeper work that I'm going to do later. All right. And then before I start working on this anterior shoulder, if I'm going to be doing some work a little closer to the breast tissue, I'm just going to talk to my client, get some permission going on here so they know what's going to happen. And they're aware, and we're not going anywhere that makes them uncomfortable. And usually I'll tell them, like, okay, we need to work on your the front of your shoulder. Maybe you're having some mid-back or upper back pain. This is going to help with all of that because it's all connected. And so we're going to, and I'll point on myself and I'll say, like, hey, we're going to work here into the side ribs. We're going to work around the front of the breast tissue, onto the sternum, and everywhere in there, onto the lower ribs. Are you comfortable with that? And then I'll just point to it on myself so they know where we're going. How about you? You comfortable with all that? All right. So first thing I want to do is just some work on the pec. So I've warmed it up really well. And then I'm going to do a movement that's just pin and movement. So I'm going to take my knuckles here and then just do a pin. I could also take the side of my hand here, pin that way. And then, so I'm pinning half the pec, and then I'm adding in some movement. A lot of times I'll pin too with this ulnar side of my hand. And I'm just kind of pressing down. And if the breast tissue is in the way, then I'm just kind of pushing it down a little bit. And I'm on those upper ribs. Pinning, and then adding some movement in so that I'm forcing this end of the pec just to be doing some work. And in case that tendon is being kind of lazy and it's making the belly of the muscle do all the work, so I'm just kind of helping that tendon to loosen up and do some more work. And then sometimes I'll move that pin down a little bit more, and down a little bit more. Next thing I'm going to do is talk to pec minor. So I'm going to find where that is, right under the collarbone here. And those fibers are going usually kind of like down and this way a little bit. And usually they're pretty tender on people. So you can usually kind of find them, just find a tender spot. How's that? Does that feel tender? Okay. And I'm not going to use my fingertips to pin, just because I don't need my fingertips to work that hard. So instead I'm just going to use my knuckles here and do a pin, just a medium pressure pin. And then to get some movement in there, I'm going to have my client take a nice deep breath, and I'm going to tell her to breathe all the way up to her collarbones. So go ahead and do that for me. And this is getting some movement in there when her upper ribs are expanding. And it's just kind of an easy way to address this area without going in there and making it hard on myself. And usually about 3 breaths is good. Good job. And then I can feel that tissue is a little better now. I'm going to bring this arm back up where it was before. And just make sure everything's all warmed up. I like to do the top and the bottom, so this hand is sliding underneath the scapula. This hand, I'm getting right over, I'm kind of going all the way over to the sternum, right? Some people are very much against, like, they're not going to slide under the drape at all. And I'm kind of okay with going underneath it just a little bit. And that's going to depend on you and your clients. You know, you might not do it on a first-time client, someone who hasn't had a massage before. But if you're working on people that you've been working on for a while, they trust you, and just a little bit underneath the drape was not going to cause them to panic too much. All right, now, well, I've got this arm up here. I'm just going to give it a little stretch. We're going to get into those lats. And we're just stretching that pec a little bit. Another good stretch for the pec would be to be straight down. And then to come this way. Or I can just kind of explore this whole range of motion out here. How's your shoulder doing, client?
Fine.
Good. All right, and I'm just gonna leave this up here. The next thing I like to do is kind of this upper rib cage here. I like to do a compression so that I'm pressing it down basically towards their feet, a little bit towards the table, a little bit towards their feet. So I can just come in here and be using this part of my hand and just do a compression. I can also come in with my forearm if I'm used to using my forearm. How's that pressure?
Fine.
Okay. And then sometimes you got to talk to the client and be like, oh, a little up here, a little closer to the sternum, maybe a little closer to the side. What works for you? Do you like more to the side? Closer to the middle? She likes more to the side. Just compressing that upper rib cage. All right, so we can go in here closer to the subscap here. And I went in here and I just warmed it up earlier with a little effleurage. And then I don't really like the thing where people take their thumb and then they pin, because I don't like that done on me. So a lot of times I will take my knuckles, so we have a little bit of a broader surface. So I'll just take my knuckles here and run them along. I'm on the anterior side of the lateral scapula. And so we're going to be hitting the subscap and the teres. How's that pressure for you? Does it feel effective?
Yes.
Okay. I like to also do a pin and a movement. So I will pin it here, and then the movement I'm going to do, to reposition my arm, is I'm just going to have this go across like this, or I could go in a circle. And then this hand is just pinning kind of that anterior side, pinning it down towards the table, and then in a little bit towards the middle. And I've just got like 2 knuckles here. I'm still trying to keep it kind of a broad surface. And I'm not using my thumb because that's kind of pointy, and also I don't need to use my thumb. I'm going to save my thumb for things that I cannot use anything else for. And then I just kind of did a slow glide down that side as I was adding in some movement here. Slowly gliding down till I reach the bottom of the scapula. All right, next thing I'm going to do is work on the sternum and get some of the sternal attachments, because your pec is attached to your sternum. So sometimes I will just go here with the ulnar side of my hand, just warm it up by doing a little rock on the sternum. And then I'm going to work these attachments here. And then if I have I'm just going to do it over the drape, which I always do. And that's kind of nice too, because if I use my fingertips, then it's a little muted. It's not quite as sharp because it's generally very tender as well. We don't work this area very much. And this will really help your upper back, mid back too, with all those intercostals. Now I could use my fingertips here. Sometimes my fingertips get tired or they don't want to work that hard. So then sometimes I'll use the ulnar side of my hand and I'll do that. Sometimes I'll just I'm pushing out towards the side and I'll hold that a little bit. Move down. If I'm worried about my hand touching other things, sometimes what I'll do is I'll just take this and put it over this side here. And then my hand kind of has a little place to rest without being on the breast tissue. Or if you're worried that, you'll accidentally touch anything. Okay, and then I would do the other side. And the last thing I really like to do is I also like to address these lower ribs too. We kind of did a little something with the upper ribs, so let's get these lower ribs. I always do this just through the drape. This is called the rib hug. And your ribs, they're going to go up and out when you inhale. And when you exhale, they're going down and in. And so I really want to mimic kind of that down and in movement and kind of see how much mobility that they have in their rib cage. Usually I start off with a little rocking. And even if there's a lot of breast tissue here, you can usually reach some of this lower rib cage. So once I kind of feel and see like how much mobility we've got going on, then I might stop and kind of see what their breath pattern is like. And maybe if they're half asleep, I might have to say, go ahead and take a deeper breath because I want to feel that pattern when it goes out. And then as they breathe in, I'm just going to bring my hand in just a little bit. So I'm kind of here and I'm going to give them a little like hug when they exhale. We're following the rhythm that their ribs are already making. So go ahead and take a deep breath for me. And as she exhales, I'm just pulling towards the midline. And then I'm going to give her a little out as she inhales, give her a little room, pull it in just a little bit more. And I'm kind of trying to follow, I'm not forcing this, I'm following the ribs as they're collapsing in. I'm just giving them a little extra squeeze, a little extra hug. And then I would go around and do the other side. Sometimes, if I don't have a lot of time, I'll do both sides together. Go ahead and take a deep breath. And on the exhale, we're just squeezing in towards the midline. Inhale, I give her a little. Exhale, we're squeezing in a little bit more. All right. And then sometimes I'll take this upper rib cage and this lower rib cage just over the sheet. I've kind of addressed all these areas again, but I've just given them a little bit of love here at the end. And then I might finish off with some nice effleurage over this area that we've already done. All right, that is the anterior shoulder and rib cage. That's how I do it. There might be something in there that you can use. If you have a really good way that you do it, just put it in the comments. Thanks for watching.